Hey guys, tonight we begin with something a little darker. A time of plagues, punishments, and pottage. We're diving into what life was really like during the Middle Ages. Forget the castles and chivalry Hollywood sold you. The truth, you probably wouldn't last a single day. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. It's always fascinating to see who's joining us from around the world. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Congratulations. You've just woken up in the year 1325. That is if you manage to sleep at all. The air in your room, or rather your hut, is thick with damp wood and livestock breath. You're lying on a lumpy pile of straw, stuffed into a coarse linen sack, which at one point might have been called a mattress. It's teeming with fleas, but hey, at least it's better than sleeping in the mud outside. Marginally. The mattress has a scent if you're curious. It's like someone tried to mop up a barn with wet hay and then left it in the sun to think about what it's done. You roll over, but the blanket clinging to you isn't much better. It's wool heavy, from a year of use, without a single wash, and it now weighs about as much as a baby goat, except somehow less cuddly. As your eyes adjust to the gloom, you realize something else: you're not alone. You never are. In fact, you share this room with your family, your parents, maybe some siblings, a pig, 2 chickens and the local mice, who pay no rent. It's one open space, one room to eat, sleep, cook, and occasionally regret all your life decisions. There are no windows, just a tiny hole near the roof to let the smoke out and a little light in. The walls are timber, stuffed with straw and clay. The floor, hard-packed dirt that squishes slightly where the pigs got too excited last night. Then it hits you, the sound. The church bell. Loud, distant, but insistent. It's the medieval alarm clock, and it doesn't care about snooze buttons. It rings whether you like it or not, because the day doesn't wait, not even for your mild existential crisis. You sit up and feel every joint complain. Your back aches from straw poking in odd angles, and your skin itches from the flea circus that just performed its morning act on your legs. There's no toothpaste, no toothbrush, and definitely no morning coffee. Your breath smells like the inside of a boot. Someone forgot at a fish market. You shuffle toward the door, or rather a wooden slab wedged into the wall. The latch creaks as you open it, and cold air slaps you awake like a rude medieval barmaid. Outside, the sun is rising behind fog-drenched trees. A rooster screams at you. Rude. You're lucky it's not winter, or you'd be brushing frost off your own eyebrows right now. But still, the mud clings to your bare feet, and the smell of the pigsty drifts over like a warm hug you didn't ask for. Back inside, someone stirs. Maybe your mother. She's already stoking the fire with last night's half-burned wood. It's your only heat source, cooking appliance, and vaguely comforting focal point. Smoke curls toward the ceiling and lingers. Chimneys haven't caught on yet. That's next century's problem. You glance around at your family. Half of them are still wrapped in their wool sacks, groaning and swatting at imaginary bugs. The others are already pulling on layers of rough-spun tunics and leggings made of scratchy wool that makes you wonder if comfort was outlawed sometime before the Black Death. Spoiler, it hasn't hit yet. But give it about 25 years. Historians still argue whether most peasant families had some degree of personal space or whether everyone just embraced the chaos. Either way, don't count on privacy. Even chamber pots are communal. It's like a sleepover with too many siblings and not enough beds. A cough cuts through the room. Your younger brother. His nose is running again, probably from the mold growing somewhere under the sleeping straw. Or maybe from the smoke. Or maybe from the general dampness of existence. Good luck finding out. Medical care isn't exactly booming. You get up, scratch yourself absent-mindedly, and realize something else. It's your turn to fetch water. The well is 2 fields away and the bucket is cracked, but it's that or go thirsty. And even if you do get there, the water might be tinged with silt insects or a dead frog. That was last week. Still, congratulations. You survived the night. You've made it to the start of a full medieval day. Just 999 more of these to go, assuming the pox doesn't find you first. And remember, this is the easy part. You step outside clutching your cloak if you're lucky enough to have one, and feel the cold ooze into your bones. It's the kind of damp chill that doesn't bite so much as it slowly seeps into your soul. The chickens scatter as you walk past them, and the mud squelches under your feet with every reluctant step toward the outhouse. Except there is no outhouse. Nature is your restroom. A mossy corner behind the hovel maybe, or a shared pit you dig and fill again and again until it becomes a hazard unto itself. There's no seat, no walls, and certainly no toilet paper. Just a stick, some damp grass, and whatever creative shame management techniques you can muster. You crouch down, eyes darting around for privacy. Except there's none. Not from the goats watching you with passive judgment. Not from your siblings who think it's hilarious to throw pebbles while you're doing your business. And definitely not from the cold breeze that makes you question every life choice that led you to this precise moment. You clean up as best you can, don't ask how, and head back to the house where the smell of something wafts through the doorway. Breakfast, or at least what counts as breakfast in this era of culinary despair. You settle near the hearth, your stomach growling as a wooden bowl is pressed into your hands. Inside is pottage, thick, greyish, the texture of paste. Imagine oatmeal, but cooked in ditch water and seasoned with absolutely nothing except despair and boiled turnip. That's pottage. If you're lucky, there's a chunk of barley or a suspiciously soft carrot floating in it. If you're very lucky, it doesn't move. Most days, though, it's just thin gruel made from whatever roots or grains survived the last frost. No eggs, no bacon, no toast, and absolutely no coffee. There's not even tea unless you count steeped nettles and crushed misery leaves. And the bowl, it's shared. Yes, shared. Passed around between family members, spooned into mouths, one after the other. Hygiene isn't the point. Survival is. You scrape what you can from the sides with a splintery wooden spoon, trying to ignore the faint taste of last night's dinner, or maybe last week's that lingers in the grooves. This, believe it or not, is how most of Europe began their day for centuries. Breakfast was not a joy. It was a chore, a lukewarm reminder that you're alive and poor. Still, historians debate whether every peasant household started their mornings with pottage or if some went straight to work and ate later. But consensus agrees on one thing: whatever it wasn't a feast. You wipe your mouth with the back of your sleeve. Napkins haven't entered your vocabulary, and head back outside to dump the dishwater. Except there's no dish soap, no sponge and no sink. You toss the water into the yard where it joins the slop bucket pig droppings and yesterday's laundry rinse. And here's a fun fringe tidbit for you. Some medieval folks used ashes mixed with lard as a cleaning agent. That's right. Ash from your fire, rubbed on your dishes. And they wondered why everyone had stomach problems. Nature calls again, but this time it's your body demanding movement, not relief. You're expected to get to work immediately. The fields won't plough themselves. And your master, yes, the local lord who owns the land, expects your family's labour as part of your feudal agreement. You don't own this plot. You work it in exchange for protection, which mostly means being ignored unless taxes are due or war breaks out. So you trudge to the field with a dull hoe aback, already sore from your damp bed, and the comforting knowledge that you'll repeat this exact day until either the harvest comes in or your body gives out. Your breath puffs in clouds as you work, and the mud clings to your boots until you feel like you're wearing bricks. Every 10 minutes or so, you look up, not for inspiration, but to make sure no one's watching you slack off. In medieval Europe, laziness isn't just frowned upon, it's punished, sometimes publicly. Back at the house, someone's watching the fire to keep the embers from dying. You don't waste firewood here. It's gathered by hand and guarded like treasure. If it goes out, good luck starting it again without matches or kindling. And let's talk utensils. Forget knives and forks. You eat with a spoon. Just one. Shared. Washed only if someone remembers. And most plates, they're trencher bread. Day-old slabs of dense, stale dough used as makeshift plates, and then either eaten, if you're that desperate, or tossed to the dogs, or poor. You think it can't get worse, and then you spot the water bucket. It's low. Again. You draw the short straw. Again. So it's back to the well 2 fields away where you'll haul a wooden bucket filled with what passes for drinking water. It might be clear. It might be green. It might contain a wriggly surprise. You drink it anyway. You don't have a choice. And through all of this, your stomach still growls. Pottage doesn't fill you. It teases. It lies. It settles into your belly, like warm regret, and then vanishes, leaving only an echo of remember when you thought that was food. The sun rises a little higher, and you glance toward the path that leads to the village centre. You won't go there today. You can't. There's no time, and besides your feet hurt too much. But you know what's down there. The church, the market, and that old woman named Agnes who always stares at you like she knows your secrets. You'll deal with her later. Maybe. You're back inside now and the fire's finally throwing some real heat, which is nice because you're about to change into your day clothes. Don't get excited. They're the same as your night clothes. Just maybe slightly drier. If you're lucky. First comes the underlayer, assuming you have one. It's a linen shirt that's supposed to wick sweats, but in reality, it's a thin excuse for modesty that hasn't been properly washed since the last harvest. It smells like a sack of onions that's lost its will to live. Next, you pull on your outerwear, a woolen tunic, scratchier than a hay bale, and just as shapeless. If you're a man, maybe you've got some hose, basically fabric tubes tied to a belt. If you're a woman, it's layers of wool skirts and aprons. Either way, comfort is not part of the fashion agenda. There are no tags, no seams, no sizing charts. Everything's been hand-stitched by someone with fading eyesight and a vague memory of how clothes are supposed to fit. You look like a potato sack with legs, and that's normal. Historians still argue whether peasants really looked as ragged as they're portrayed in modern media. Some evidence suggests they had Sunday bests, nicer clothes saved for feast days or church. But that's not today. Today you're wearing your Tuesday crusties, and they're doing their best to fight back. You glance at your sleeves stiff with dirt and something unidentifiable that may or may not have once been soup. There's no soap, just cold water, and elbow grease, and even that's in short supply. You'd wash your clothes, but the process takes all day. Heat, the water, find wood scrub on a rock, hope it doesn't freeze before it dries. And then there's the smell. It's complex. A layered bouquet of barnyard wood smoke, old sweat, and that particular tang of medieval laundry that's been air-dried next to a pigsty. Your shoes, if you have them, are leather turn shoes, thin as paper, and about as waterproof as a colander. Every step squelches, your feet are already damp, and you haven't even left the yard. If you're barefoot, which many are, you just mentally prepare for stepping on sharp rocks, goat pellets, and the occasional surprise leech. You reach up to scratch your neck, and then immediately regret it. A louse scurries across your fingertips. You freeze. It's not panic. It's resignation. You flick it off, knowing 5 more will take its place before nightfall. Lice are a fact of life like taxes and bad soup. Speaking of pests, you catch a glimpse of your older cousin combing her hair with a bone comb over the fire. The heat kills the lice. Supposedly. You'll try that later. Maybe. You step outside again, layered in scratchy wool, your skin already prickling with irritation. A dog trots by, trailing a line of drool and joy. At least someone's happy. You pass neighbours who look just like you, sunken-eyed sniffling. draped in grey and brown like the world forgot about colour after Rome fell. They nod. You nod. No one speaks because words use energy, and you're conserving every calorie from that tragic bowl of pottage. Back inside, your younger sibling is still trying to get dressed. He's got his tunic on backward and his shoes mismatched, but he's 5 and already expected to help carry water herd animals and not die. Fashion isn't his top concern. There's a bucket in the corner of the room, filled with cloudy water from yesterday's wash. Someone grabs a rag and starts scrubbing their face. 1 bucket, 1 rag, 7 faces. Hygiene is a team effort and a losing battle. Here's a quirky fact for you people. Sometimes stuffed herbs like lavender or rosemary into their collars or under their hats to mask the smell of well-being alive. You think about doing the same, but herbs cost money. So you settle for a dirt-smudged scarf and a confident attitude. As you sit down to mend a tear in your sleeve, because no one's buying new clothes unless someone dies, you jab your finger with the needle. It bleeds. Just a little. No big deal. Except there's no Band-Aid, no alcohol, no antibiotic ointment. You suck it clean and move on, hoping that infection doesn't decide to spice things up. In the village, the tanner's apprentice walks past, soaked in something that smells like feet and nightmares. He's been working animal hides in urine all morning. That's how leather is softened weeks in lye and pee. He grins at you with 3 teeth and waves. You wave back out of politeness. And let's not forget seasonal accessories. In summer, you're a walking sweat sponge. In winter, you're wearing every piece of fabric you own, still shivering. Scarves, hoods, cloaks, layers on layers to fight off the cold. But it never really works. The wind always finds a way in. You return to your morning chores. Maybe it's feeding chickens, spinning wool, patching that hole in the roof with mud and prayer. Whatever it is, you do it while wearing clothes that itch, shoes that leak, and undergarments that may or may not exist. And every time you move, you feel the weight of the dirt in your clothes, the grime settling into the seams. You'll sleep in these clothes. You'll eat in them. You'll probably die in them. You're out in the field now, wool sticking to your back, sun starting to climb, though not warmly, and your body already aching in places you didn't know could ache. You'd think by now your stomach might have settled from the pottage incident. But no. It started a new rebellion. And then comes the first bite of your mid-morning snack, a crust of barley bread so hard it might qualify as a weapon. You chew, and chew, and chew. The bread grinds against your molars like gravel on stone. It's gritty, partly because the millstones that ground the flour also chipped off bits of actual stone, and partly because nobody here has the energy to sift flour properly, so each bite is a blend of carbs and dental threat. By now your gums are inflamed, your teeth already beginning to ache. Which makes sense, really. You haven't brushed your teeth because, well, toothbrushes don't exist in your world. Maybe you've got a stick or a rag soaked in salt water if you're feeling fancy, but mostly you just let time and trauma do the cleaning. Sugar, by the way, is a thing, but not for you. It's imported, rare, and usually found in the spice cabinets of the nobility, if they even had spice cabinets. You, on the other hand, are stuck with fermented grains, occasional mouldy cheese, and the sort of bread that might double as medieval dental floss if it weren't such a choking hazard. And here's the kicker. Historians still argue whether medieval peasants actually had worse teeth than we do today. There's some evidence that because sugar was rare, cavities weren't as rampant as you'd expect. But then again, when you're gnawing on bread laced with sand, it doesn't matter. Your molars are still losing the fight. You push through using your tongue to search for that tooth that's been sore for weeks. It's getting worse. Maybe there's an abscess. Maybe it's just age. You're not even 30, but you feel 80. And in medieval time, that's normal. Really, you're almost middle-aged. Across the field, someone coughs, a wet, chesty cough that echoes across the damp earth. You glance over. No one says anything. It could be just a cold, or it could be something worse, like plague, or consumption, or as people call it here, a visit from the angels. You pretend not to notice and keep digging. The wind shifts, and you catch a smell. Not an awful one for once, but something faintly sweet. Someone's baking bread. Must be one of the wealthier homes. Or maybe the monastery down the road. They get better food, better wine, and definitely better dental care. Monks, it turns out, sometimes brewed beer as a safer alternative to water. So small mercies. You spit into the dirt, hoping no blood comes with it. There's none. Not yet. Back at the cottage, your grandmother's mixing herbs into a jar. She claims it's for sore teeth made from sage and vinegar, and something she won't name. It smells like feet. You dab a little on your gums later. It doesn't help, but it distracts you from the actual pain, which is the closest thing to relief you're going to get. There's no dentist in your village. If you live near a town, you might find a barber surgeon who'll yank your teeth with iron tongs. No anesthesia, no sterilization, just a prayer and a loud pop. But you can't afford that. So you live with the ache. Or don't. A quirky fact for you, some folks in this time actually believed toothaches were caused by toothworms, tiny creatures burrowing into your molars and gnawing on your nerves. It sounds absurd, but honestly, when you've had a throbbing jaw for 5 days, you start to believe anything. You continue working. The dirt clumps around your shoes, the wind chaps your lips, and your jaw pulses with every heartbeat. You pause for a moment near a tree and think, what would you give for a piece of fruit? A real apple. Sweet, crisp, clean. Except the apples in this century are mostly sour, small, and riddled with worms. And anyway, they're out of season. You pull out a piece of cheese from your pouch. It's hard as rock and smells like something that once lived a full, eventful life. You bite into it anyway. It fights back. But it's something that sticks to your teeth and your memories. By now, the pain in your mouth has moved to your temples. Your head throbs. Your neck tenses. You try to focus on the work, ploughing, seeding, turning soil. But every vibration runs through your jaw like a tuning fork for misery. The sun reaches its highest point. It's noon. Time for a break, barely. You sit under a tree with your fellow workers. No one talks. Just chewing. Just breathing. Just a handful of people enduring another nameless grinding day in a century where survival is the best reward. Someone nearby swishes water in their mouth and spits. Another grimaces while touching their jaw. You're not alone in this. Pain is communal, a quiet ritual that ties everyone together. Someone makes a joke, something about how the village cow has better teeth than Old Man Henry. You chuckle, carefully. You rest your head against the bark of the tree and close your eyes. For just a second, the ache in your mouth dulls. The warmth of the sun feels not awful. There's still mud under your nails, and your breath could stop a horse, but you made it through the worst part of the day. You're back on your feet before you're ready. Always before you're ready. Because this isn't the kind of life where you ease into things. This is the kind of life where you move when the work tells you to, not when your muscles agree to it. As the afternoon stretches ahead, the work splits. If you're a man, it's back-breaking labor in the fields. Digging, herding, repairing fences. If you're a woman, congratulations. You get to do all of that, plus raise children, feed animals, spin wool patch, clothing, and pretend that your husband's lice infestation isn't slowly migrating to your side of the bed. There is no day off. No me time. No scented candles or deep breathing exercises. Your only form of meditation is zoning out while scrubbing soot off a cooking pot with a handful of gritty sand. One of the younger kids toddles by, maybe 5 years old. He's dragging a rake behind him barely bigger than his hand. That's not play, it's work. Because by age 5, you're expected to contribute. Haul water, shuck corn, chase off the geese. There's no school to worry about. No reading lessons, just chores. You hand the child a crust of bread and he accepts it with the wide-eyed gratitude of someone who doesn't remember a time before chewing rocks for breakfast. He eats it quietly. There are no toys, no games, just the occasional stick or a frog to poke if the day's generous. Historians still debate how formal children's labour roles were, but what's certain is that childhood as we know it didn't exist. You went from baby to miniature labourer almost overnight, and by the time your legs were long enough to follow an adult, they expected you to act like one. You glance back at the cottage where your mother, if she's still alive, is kneeling beside a wash tub, sleeves soaked, hands red from scrubbing. Laundry day is a punishment delivered weekly by the gods of soapless suffering. No lye, no detergent, just water heat and sweat. She's been up since dawn already, cooked 2 meals, swept the floor with a bundle of tied twigs, and now she's boiling undergarments in a pot that looks suspiciously like the one used for soup. That's not a mistake. Multi-purpose cookware is the name of the game here. If there's a baby in the house, she's been nursing on and off, probably while churning butter or feeding chickens. Infants don't slow anyone down. They get strapped to a back or plopped into a basket with hay and left near the fire. You don't have the luxury of parenting philosophies. You just keep them alive and moving. There's a soft crying sound from the house. Another child. Always another one. You go inside and find your sister trying to soothe a toddler with a rag doll that's mostly straw and spit. The child's nose is running, cheeks are flushed, and there's a faint wheeze to his breath. You don't call a doctor. There isn't one. Maybe the wise woman if she's in the mood. Maybe a herbal poultice. Maybe just prayer. But most likely, time. Either the child will get better, or they won't. The mortality rate for children under 5 is staggering. Nearly half don't make it to kindergarten age. Disease, hunger, cold, pick a reason. Even a simple fever could mean the end. And if you're poor, that number climbs even higher. You think about your neighbour, the one who lost 2 kids last winter. One to a cough, the other to a bad batch of stew. The stew had mushrooms, someone thought they were safe. They weren't. The girl from 2 cottages over is already betrothed. She's 12. Her fiancé is 17 and has a patchy beard and no sense of humour. She'll be married before spring. Pregnant by summer. That's just how it goes. Marriage isn't about love. It's about labour, alliance and survival. Romantic feelings are optional and often unwelcome. A quirky little fact. In some places, girls were taught how to sew a burial shroud before they learned how to write their own name. Not because they were morbid, but because they'd need one, sooner than most would like to admit. And if you're a woman, you're on hard mode full time. You're expected to do everything and still be grateful, no matter how tired you are. No one's asking how your mental health is. No one even knows what that is. You're either pious and obedient or troublesome. And if you're the latter, best not to make too much noise. You stir the pot over the fire, watching the contents bubble like a witch's brew. It's just more pottage, but your mind drifts to darker thoughts. What if you wanted more? What if you wanted out? Well, tough. This is your life. Your role was assigned at birth, and deviation is dangerous. Speak out too much, and you're a problem. Refuse to marry, and you're a burden. Try to make your own decisions, and someone's quoting scripture at you before you can finish your sentence. Still, despite it all, you hear laughter outside. Kids chasing chickens. Someone telling a joke. A woman humming while she spins wool. These are the flickers of light in a long grey day. People adapt, even here, especially here, because you have to. You sit back, rubbing the ache in your shoulders, watching the fire glow low in the hearth. You're exhausted, bruised, maybe even a little numb, but you've done the work. You survived the morning. You fed the children. You kept the pot boiling. And as you scrape a louse from your collar, you think one day down, hundreds more to go. It's late afternoon now, and the air has shifted. The sun's still up, But there's a heaviness to the sky, the kind that hints at either rain or another bad omen. You're starting to smell like, well, you and everyone else, which is a polite way of saying the combined aroma of sweat, smoke, livestock, and everything you've come into contact with since waking up. You'd kill for a bath, a real one, with hot water and soap, maybe even bubbles. But this is medieval Europe, and bathing isn't quite the spa retreat you might imagine. First of all, water isn't just water. It's a gamble. You want to bathe fine. Just know that what you're stepping into has likely been used by 3 other people before you and might be home to a mosquito family reunion. You start by hauling water again, from the same open well or rain barrel where the neighborhood birds like to hang out and do their business. You try not to think about it too much. Thinking just makes things worse. You heat what little you can over the fire. The rest stays cold. There's no tub unless you live near a monastery or in a very lucky village. You might just squat in a wooden barrel, or if you're truly unlucky, use a stream. A cold one, with leeches and local teens throwing rocks nearby. You strip off your wool layers hesitantly. The cold snaps at your skin immediately and you realize how rarely you actually see your own body. Mostly because you don't want to. There are bruises, bites, blotches. That's just normal. You scrub with a rag. No soap, not unless someone traded for lye. Just ash or sand rubbed in tight circles until your skin feels like it's going to fall off, and then rinsed with water that may or may not make things worse. Here's something charming medieval folks believed: bathing too often could weaken the body. Let that sink in. They thought water, especially warm water, could open the pores and let disease sneak in. So in some regions, bathing was reserved for special occasions or illness, which is, of course, when your skin least wants to be wet and scrubbed with gravel. Historians still debate how often medieval people actually bathed. Some argue peasants washed weekly more than we once thought. Others think it was closer to monthly. Either way, it's not enough to make a dent in the grime you're accumulating from that cow you wrestled earlier. Even if you manage to get somewhat clean, there's no towel. You air dry. In the wind. While standing next to the compost heap. It's a spa day, but make it miserable. You redress in the same itchy woolen layers, still damp from this morning's mist, and pretend that counts as fresh. You know you'll be sweating again in 10 minutes anyway. Meanwhile, you spot the neighbor lad trying to clean his shirt by beating it against a rock in the creek. It's symbolic more than successful. The water's murky and something upstream is definitely decomposing. But he slaps the cloth again, determined. Back home, your siblings have tried to do a bit of laundry in a big cauldron near the fire. It smells vaguely of cabbage and failure. The soap they've made is lye-based, strong enough to strip paint, let alone skin. They fish out the garments with a stick, hang them over the rafters, and hope the smoke does the rest. Your undergarments, assuming you're wearing any, are stiff with yesterday's sweat. You stare at them, hanging like flags of surrender, and decide they can go another day. Or 5. And now let's talk about your hair. Tangled, greasy, crawling with the kind of activity you don't want to examine too closely. You try to comb it, but the wooden teeth snag every inch. You yank. It hurts. A louse falls onto your lap. You flick it away and hope it drowns in the stew pot. Not that it would. You remember a tip from the old woman in the next hut: rinse with vinegar to kill lice. But vinegar is rare. It's used for pickling and preserving, not head hygiene. So instead you cover your hair with a scarf or a hood and try not to scratch in front of the priest. And don't even ask about your feet. The blisters are just blisters now. They've leveled up into their own personality. You sit down to pick out a pebble from your heel and wonder what it must be like to walk on something soft. A rug, maybe, or grass that isn't full of animal droppings. Back in the field, a boy is wiping his hands on his pants after a long afternoon of hauling stones. You recognize the gesture. It's 1 part cleaning, 2 parts futility. His face is streaked with soot, and his nose is crusted over, but no one says anything. Because that's just what people look like here. A quirky fact. In some noble households, there were bath nights in wooden tubs, filled with herbs, rose petals, and scented oils. It was luxurious, until everyone in the family used the same water one after another. By the end, it was basically a soup of human regret. You look down at your own hands, cracked dry dirt under every nail. You used to care. Or maybe you just remember caring. Either way, it's easier now to accept it. As dusk settles, the cold creeps in again. The fire starts to feel inviting. You know what's coming, supper? More pottage, maybe a hunk of cheese if fortune favours you. But right now, all you can think about is how you'll never truly feel clean. Not really. Not here. You shuffle back into the cottage, your skin tingling from the chill, your clothes clinging damply to your frame, and your scalp already itching again. You've just managed to settle by the fire again, skin still tingling from that heroic excuse for a bath when the church bell rings again. Not a casual chime, a full-on all the way across the village tolling. It's not signalling an emergency. It's just reminding you, in the most ominous way possible, that you live under the eye of God, the church. And let's be honest, Agnes. Agnes is your neighbour. She lives 3 huts down and somehow always knows what you're doing. Or not doing. She watches through the cracks in her shutters and reports directly to the priest or anyone else who'll listen. Think of her as medieval Facebook, but with more judgment and fewer friend requests. Tonight, you need to attend Vespers, evening mass, because missing it isn't just frowned upon, it's noticed. The church runs your calendar. It determines your feast days, your fast days, your marriages, your births, and your punishments. It even tells you when you can eat meat. Spoiler, not often. And you're expected to show up. No matter how tired you are. No matter if your knees hurt from weeding the field since sunrise. God and Agnes are watching. You wrap your cloak around your shoulders and step back out into the chill, following the flicker of the torchlight down the muddy road. Other villagers are shuffling along too. No one speaks, just the soft squelch of wet shoes and the occasional sneeze. The church looms ahead, dark stone and draughty windows, lit from within by flickering candles that make the saints on the walls look like they're blinking. You step inside and are hit with the smell incense mildew and the faint whiff of unwashed humanity. You find your place on a hard wooden bench. No cushions, no back support, just a flat plank and a long prayer. The priest begins in Latin, a language you do not understand, but are expected to fear. He chants the words with deep solemnity, while your stomach rumbles like a brewing storm. A baby cries. Someone coughs. A man 2 rows ahead looks like he might actually be asleep with his eyes open. But you all sit, kneel, stand, and bow in unison. It's less about understanding and more about obedience. Religion isn't optional here. It's embedded in every part of your life. You're born under baptism, married under blessings, and buried under bell tolls. The church owns land, collects taxes, and reads the Bible, which you can't read because literacy is a luxury reserved for monks, clerics, and maybe the Lord's steward. Historians still argue about how devout the average peasant truly was. Was it genuine faith or fearful habit? Probably both. You believe because you must. Because eternal damnation isn't something you have time to risk. And there's always a reminder. If not from the priest, then from Agnes, who is definitely watching to see if you close your eyes for more than a blink. She'll mention it to someone, and then someone else. And then suddenly you're getting fewer eggs at market and suspicious looks from your neighbour's goat. The priest finishes the reading and starts into a short sermon about sin, humility, and the virtue of hard work. You already know the message. Suffer quietly, serve your master, and someday, maybe your soul will be rewarded. Not your body, though. That's basically disposable. You cross yourself, mouth the final prayer, and shuffle back outside. The night air is colder now. The wind slides between the gaps in your cloak like a whisper of penance. The sky is full of stars, gorgeous, eternal, and totally uninterested in your struggles. You head home by torchlight mud, caking your shoes again, joints aching. The church has done its job tonight. You've remembered your place, and how small it is. As you walk, you pass the manor house on the hill. A light flickers in the window. Maybe the Lord is still up, reading a book in a language you'll never understand. Or maybe he's sleeping peacefully secure in the knowledge that God and serfs alike keep his world in order. You get back to your hut. The fire's gone low. Someone's asleep in your spot by the wall. You nudged them, gently, reclaim your space and curl under the wool blanket. It's slightly less itchy now. Or maybe your nerves have just given up. You think back on the sermon, about redemption, about sacrifice, about how your whole existence is wrapped in rules made by people who've never once had to clean a chamber pot with their bare hands. And yet there's comfort in the rhythm, in the bell that rings at dawn, the mass at night, the feast days where you might get meat. The certainty that no matter what happens, you know what tomorrow looks like. You close your eyes. The room is dark. The only sounds are soft breathing and the occasional snore. The candle flickers. The wind sighs. And somewhere Agnes is probably still awake, noting who returned late from Mass. You wake the next morning, thinking maybe, just maybe, today will be easier. Spoiler, it won't be. Because today someone in the village stole a chicken. And that means justice is coming. Now, before you start picturing a courtroom with robes and gavels, let's be clear. Medieval justice is less due process and more survive the spectacle. Law here is a public performance designed to keep people in line through fear, and when necessary, a healthy dose of physical discomfort. You trudge into the village square, not because you're nosy, but because your cousin elbowed you and whispered, "They're bringing out the scold's bridle." And really, how do you say no to that? At the centre of the crowd stands a woman, her head bowed, hands tied. She's accused of gossiping. Not stealing, not murder, just talking too much. Maybe she said the wrong thing about the wrong person. Maybe she insulted Agnes. Either way, she's being fitted with a device that looks like it was dreamed up during a particularly cruel nightmare. It's called the scold's bridle. A metal mask with a plate that goes into the mouth to press down the tongue. It's heavy, humiliating, and designed to silence women who speak out. You watch as it's buckled on the crowd, murmuring. No one stops it. Some don't even look. This is normal. Historians still debate how widespread such punishments really were, or whether some were more symbolic than common. But in places where they did exist, they were terrifyingly effective. No one wants to end up with a bar in their mouth and a rusted cage around their head. You look away, and your eyes land on the stocks. They sit at the edge of the square, like a polite reminder that disobedience will always have a seat waiting. Steal a loaf of bread. The stocks. Get drunk and shout at the priest. The stocks. Even being idle can land you in there, whatever idle means, when you already work 14 hours a day. You once saw a man who'd been branded on the hand for stealing. The mark was permanent, a raised letter that made sure no one ever trusted him again. He left the village not long after. Or maybe he just disappeared. And if your crime is worse, like heresy or witchcraft or, heaven forbid, criticizing the church, that's when things get really creative. Tongue piercing, whipping, mutilation, or in especially fiery cases, burning. Trials aren't exactly about evidence. They're more about reputation, rumors, and luck. Sometimes it's by ordeal, carry a red-hot iron a few steps, then wait to see if your wounds heal cleanly. If they do, you're innocent. If they don't, well, try not to scream. God hates a liar. In some places, there's trial by water. You're tied and thrown into a pond. Sink and drown innocent. Float guilty and also wet. Either way, the system's watertight, at least by medieval standards. You walk past the village pillory where someone has been locked up all day. His offence: lying, or at least being accused of lying. He's got fruit in his hair and something less pleasant smeared across his tunic. The punishment isn't just physical, it's theatrical. Shame is half the sentence. And here's your quirky tidbit. Some punishments were downright bizarre, like ducking stools where women accused of being troublesome read loud, or opinionated were strapped into a chair and dunked repeatedly in cold water. It was like medieval therapy, except designed by a sadist. You glance at the village reeve, the man in charge of handing out local justice. He's puffed up with authority, pointing at people, jotting down names on a dirty scrap of parchment. You don't want to get on his bad side. Ever. Someone shouts. A fight has broken out over at the communal bread oven. It's nothing serious, just two men arguing over whose loaf got singed. But it draws attention, and suddenly everyone's watching. If this escalates, it'll be sorted right there. Maybe a fine, maybe a flogging. Depends on who's friends with the reeve. Back at your hut, your mother warns your sister not to speak too loudly when discussing the Lord's steward. You never know who's listening, she says. And she's right. In a world where justice comes with a side of humiliation, silence is often the safest sound. You retreat to your chores, still thinking about the woman in the scold's bridle. She'll be paraded around the village before they unbuckle it. Everyone will see. Everyone will remember. And that's the point. Fear is the thread that keeps this society sewn together. As you chop wood near the edge of the yard, you notice a group of boys reenacting what they just saw, one pretending to be the reeve, the others taking turns being punished. They laugh. Play acting justice. Because that's how it starts, with fear, then normalization, then imitation. And what happens if you were accused? Maybe Agnes catches you whispering during Mass. Maybe someone says you stole a turnip that wasn't yours. Would anyone stand up for you? Would they speak out, or would they look away? Probably the latter, because in the medieval world, justice isn't about fairness. It's about order. Punishment is a performance, and everyone knows their role. You finish chopping the last log, tuck your hands into your cloak, and go back inside. The fire's low, dinner's still hours away, and the village has settled into its uneasy rhythm again. Evening creeps in, slowly dragging with it the kind of chill that slips into your bones and unpacks for a long stay. The shadows stretch across the fields, the fire's glow grows more inviting, and your stomach starts whispering promises about dinner that it can't possibly keep. You make your way back to the hut, feet dragging thoughts, hazy. Your back aches. Your hands are stiff, and you've been in the same clothes for what feels like a decade. The air smells faintly of wood smoke, wet wool, and something vaguely cabbage adjacent. That's tonight's stew, again. You sit down by the hearth. Someone hands you a bowl. It's warm, thick, and questionably brown. Pottage again, because of course it is. You take a bite. It's slightly better than this morning's, mostly because you're hungrier and expectations have reached bedrock. There's something chewy in it. Could be a bean. Could be not a bean. You don't ask. You chew. Carefully. But here's the twist. While you, the common villager, suffer through another night of nutritional roulette, life up at the manor house is unfolding in a slightly different flavour of misery. The nobility live better on paper. They have meat, cheese, spices, and wine. They sleep on feather beds, wear imported fabrics, and don't haul water or chase chickens out of their bedding. But don't let the fur cloaks fool you. Comfort is relative. Take the castle, for example. It's not the cosy fortress of fairy tales. It's a stone refrigerator. Cold in winter, damp in summer, and echoing like a cave at all times. The fireplaces smoke. The floors are hard. And privacy, good luck. You're still sleeping 10 feet away from your cousin and their loudly snoring hunting dogs. And fleas, oh, they love castles. Warm bodies' furs, straw-filled mattresses. It's basically a bug spa resort. You itch all day, all night, just in silk. You think they've got plumbing? Not really. Maybe a chamber pot, maybe a garderobe, a hole in the wall that drops your business into the moat below, which sounds fancy until you realize it's upstream from the kitchen. Historians still debate whether life was really easier for the upper classes or just differently awful. Sure, they didn't have to break their backs in the fields, but they were political pawns, traded through arranged marriages like livestock with titles. Comfort and autonomy rarely came in the same package. Let's say you're a young noblewoman. Congratulations. You'll be married off before your second molar erupts to a man twice your age, with the personality of boiled mutton. Love. Not part of the deal. Your job is to produce heirs, manage servants, and pretend to be impressed by falconry. Your husband, meanwhile, is off on a hunting trip, or a skirmish, or possibly brooding in the library, which is really just a room with 4 books and a lot of tapestries that block the drafts only in theory. Politics swirl like fog around the upper class. One wrong word and you're accused of treason. One unlucky dinner and you're poisoned. Nobles live in castles, yes, but they also die in them, often, dramatically, and usually from something preventable. You think nobles get better medicine? Sort of. They can afford leeches in bulk. They have access to apothecaries and Greek medical texts no one fully understands. But the treatments, they're still medieval. Bleeding, purging herbal compresses mixed by candlelight. And don't forget mercury, which was used generously for everything from headaches to, well, death. A quirky note some noblewomen wore: makeup made with lead. That pale glow you see in portraits. It was killing them, slowly, elegantly, but killing them nonetheless. Meanwhile, back in your village hut, your father mentions that the Lord's steward lost a toe to frostbite. He didn't notice until it fell off in his boot. You nod solemnly, take another bite of stew and file that story under reasons I'm not jealous of rich people. Outside, the manor's torches flicker along the ramparts. You can see them from your field on clear nights. They look magical from a distance, golden glittering. But up close, they smell like oil and regret. And while, yes, the nobility drink wine, it's often sour-laced with herbs or watered down for servants. Beer is more common among the masses, but even that varies in quality from mildly fermented to why is it moving. Why? You finish your meal and sit back, belly vaguely full, but not satisfied. You look around the hut, the roof still leaks, the door still groans, the fire crackles as it consumes its last log. But somehow in all this discomfort, you know your place. You belong here. You're not maneuvering for political power. You're not being married off to secure a land treaty. You're just trying to survive one day at a time. So maybe the nobles have nicer plates. Maybe they eat meat more than twice a month. Maybe they even get to wear shoes with actual soles. But they also have to worry about assassin's feasts that turn fatal and whether or not their heir is conspiring to replace them. It's night time again, and you've made it to the final stretch. Dinner's done. The fire's a low orange glow, and the hut is packed with sounds. The soft breathing of your family, the occasional snore, the gentle rustle of straw as someone shifts in their sleep. And you still itchy, still cold, still wondering how you're going to get through tomorrow. You curl under your wool blanket heavier than guilt and scratchier than old gossip. Your muscles ache in that deep, tired way that doesn't go away with rest. It just settles in, becomes part of you, like the lice or the cough that won't quit, or the knowledge that nothing about today was unusual. But it's the kids that get to you most. Your youngest sibling lies next to you, bundled tight in a sackcloth tunic and a hand-me-down scarf, breathing with the shallow hiss of someone who's fought off more fevers than birthdays. You remember how fast they grew one day, crawling the next, hauling firewood. There was no time for toys, no space for play, just chores and mud and the ever-present threat of illness. Nearly half of all children won't live past the age of 5. That's not drama. That's statistics. If you're Lucky your family beats the odds. If not, you bury another name and pretend your heart didn't shatter. Earlier today, a neighbour's child coughed and collapsed while gathering eggs. By sunset, they were gone. There was no doctor, no medicine, just whispered prayers, a cloth dampened with rainwater, and the resigned quiet of everyone else who's seen it before. It happens. It always happens. You stare at the thatched roof above you, thinking about how many people in this village will be gone before spring. The old, the sick, the young, even the strong if winter is cruel or war knocks on the door again. Historians agree that the average lifespan was low, not necessarily because people couldn't live long, but because so many didn't survive childhood. If you made it to adulthood, you might see 40 or even 50, but you'd feel ancient by 25. Your joints already ache. Your back has a permanent hunch. You're missing a molar. Your left foot drags slightly from an old injury that never healed right. And you're one minor infection away from being remembered fondly. Childbirth alone is a battlefield. If you're a woman, it's one of the most dangerous things you'll do. And you'll do it a lot. With no sterile tools, no trained midwife, and no guarantee that either you or the baby comes out alive. Your sister whispers something next to you, just a breath. A question about tomorrow's chores. You answer softly, not because anyone's asleep, but because you're too tired to speak up. Words feel like heavy things best used sparingly. Out in the darkness, an owl hoots. Somewhere farther away, a wolf howls. You pull the blanket tighter. This world is raw and wide and filled with things that don't care about your feelings or your plans. You think of the times you smiled today. There weren't many, but they mattered. A joke shared in the field. A warm loaf at the communal oven. A moment where the sun hit the frost just right and made the whole world sparkle, even if only for a second. That's the strange magic of this place. It's miserable, but not without meaning. The work connects you to your family. The rituals give shape to your days. The pain, the joy, the tiny victories, they're all stitched together into a life. Not an easy one, but a life nonetheless. As you finally begin to drift into sleep, one last thought crosses your mind. You've survived another day. It wasn't heroic. It wasn't even particularly special. But it was yours. And in a world that takes so much that's worth something, the fire dwindles to soft embers now, just a gentle red pulse beneath the ash. Around you, the hut has fallen still. The laughter, the chores, the coughing, the complaints, they've faded into the hush of night. The straw beneath you creaks as you shift one last time, wrapping yourself in the warmth of fabric that's done its best to shield you from the cold. You feel the weight of the day settle into your limbs. An ache, yes, but also a kind of grounding. You've endured, and that counts for more here than comfort ever could. Beyond the wooden walls, the wind brushes through the thatch, not howling, not rushing, just whispering like it knows you're trying to sleep. The livestock rustle in their corners. A chicken clucks in its dreams. And somewhere in the trees, an owl keeps watch. The sky above your village is a blanket of stars. They don't twinkle so much as hold still, ancient and unmoved, like they're listening to the heartbeat of the earth below. The same stars your ancestors saw. The same ones your children, if they survive, might see too. And you lying here now are part of that story. A small stubborn thread in the fabric of history. Not famous, not wealthy, but real. So breathe deeper now. Let the heaviness pull you down, not in fear, but in rest. You've earned it. Let the world outside wait. Let the embers fade to silence. Let the stars keep watch. The Middle Ages will still be here tomorrow, but for now, sleep.